So, here in Astropath, a so-called gifted psyker. Born with an ability so powerful you don't just hear thoughts, you drown in them. Dark whispers, sinister threats, and all the screams, only on days that end in Y. It's like being trapped in a Walmart on Black Friday, or even worse, at a busy 4 a.m. Ugh. Except the mob is inside your skull, and the only thing on sale is your sanity. Ah, lucky you. A prisoner from birth, too valuable to set free, too dangerous to let live, a walking landmine just waiting to go off. But hey, you hold the Imperium together. You are its last fragile link between worlds. Orders, warnings, desperate cries for aid, all of it flows through you. Without you, entire sectors would collapse into silence and ruin. Sounds important, right? Maybe they treat you with a little bit of RESPECT, right? Yeah, no, this isn't the Shire. You're not getting a warm pint and a dance with a sweet Bonnie lass. More like a one-way ticket to a slow, screaming mental breakdown sponsored by The Warp. Forget about glory, man. Forget about honor. You barely even get to be alive, because while you fight to hold the Imperium together, something else is always reaching back. And not in the fun way you're thinking with your head in the gutter. Oh no, The Warp. It's patient, it waits, it watches, and one day it will take you when you least expect it. Ooh. Now here's the thing. The only thing standing between you and oblivion isn't just agony, it's your own mind eating itself. Your body rotting while you still breathe in a fate so horrific that even an Inquisitor might hesitate before purging what's left of you. Being an Astropath in Warhammer 40K, oh, it's not just a bad job, it's the worst job in the Imperium. Okay, so you were born a psyker in the grimdark nightmare of the 41st millennium. That's already strike number one. Nah, most people just grow up, live their lives, and die in some equally terrible but relatively normal way. Some just work a normal 9 to 5. They don't get conscripted into the Astra Militarum for a war they don't understand, or eaten by something with a few too many teeth. They get a luxury of a normal death, but no sirree Bob, not you. If only they knew how lucky their wretched, pitiful lives are. You, the moment you started showing signs of psychic ability, maybe it was a floating object, a dream that came true, or the fact that you gave everybody within a 10-foot radius aneurysms and sudden nosebleeds, you stopped being a child and became a very serious problem. The Imperium has exactly 3 options for psykers. None of them good and all of them awful. Option numero uno, you get fed to the Emperor. Yeah, the black ships come for you and you're shipped off to meet the half-dead chair-bound CEO who sucks you dry to the bone. And not in the fun ways either. Option number 2, you accidentally summon a daemon because you sneezed too hard. Congratulations, you are now the horror movie of the week, and the nearest Inquisitor or Commissar is going to have a very bad day cleaning up your mess, and they will have your head as punishment for it. It's like a chart, only far, far worse. And option number 3, you're just psychic enough to serve as a functional human walkie-talkie. This means you get shoved into the Astropath program, and trust me, it is no Hogwarts. Yeah, being an Astropath means that you're about to spend the rest of your life as a blind, brain-fried human radio tower screaming messages into the warp and hoping the warp doesn't scream right back at you. Lucky you. Let's just say you managed to roll option 3 because the universe hates your soul and wants you to suffer being a screaming anus for all of eternity. Astropaths are extremely needed, you know? The Imperium is way too big to function without Astropaths. I mean, a single message sent via normal means could take centuries to arrive. And by the time it gets there, the sender, the recipient, and possibly the entire civilization that needed the message is already dead. It's like sending a text message. But instead of Wi-Fi, you have to scream your message through a haunted megaphone into the depths of hell and hope that Satan is not in a chatty mood. So you're essentially a walking instant messaging device that has to go through literal hell and back to get the job done. How fun for you! And that's why you, along with thousands of other unfortunate psykers, are rounded up and shipped to Terra, where you will never see your homeworld ever again, because as far as the Imperium is concerned, you don't have a homeworld anymore. From this moment on, you are no longer a person, you are a resource, you are a tool. A fragile, disposable, barely functioning cog in the Imperium's machine. And when you break, oh buddy, it's game over for you. The training regime is horrific. You're stripped of your identity, your name, your past, because none of that matters when you're a walkie-talkie. You are now a student of the Scholastica Psychana, where you will be beaten, broken, and rebuilt into something vaguely functional before they throw you into the deep end. And if you fail, you get shipped off to be fed to the Emperor anyway, because the Imperium does not waste resources. The Imperium also doesn't do edumacation the way that you might hope. You don't get a classroom, you don't get a kind, understanding mentor who explains the mysteries of the warp with a cup of tea and some thoughtful advice. No, what you get is psychic drills designed to hammer the ability to send and receive messages into your brain while ensuring that you don't immediately explode or go insane. Your days consist of endless exercises where you launch your mind into the sea of madness, trying really hard to make sure that chaos doesn't join the group chat, all the while attempting to make contact with distant stations. And trust me, if you've ever been an astropath or married, then you know that there are things in the dark. Even in training, people start disappearing. One day, your fellow student's right there struggling to control their abilities like you. What's up, man? We got this. The next day, poof, man, it's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Your golden ticket is a one-way trip to servitor duty. And in true Oompa Loompa style, the Inquisitors chant away until your classroom's set on fire. You know, at night, at least you get to sleep in cold, silent dormitories where the walls are thick, but, you know, not thick enough to drown out the sound of people whispering in their sleep, sometimes in bass boosts. That's how you know that it's getting really real. And as months pass, you realize there is no escape. This is your life now. You are an astropath, a human antenna for the Imperium's endless war. I'll let you take a guess where that rod goes. Now this is gonna blow your mind. The soul binding is how the Imperium protects astropaths from the horrors of the warp. Okay, it's meant to be a nice little safety net to keep you from turning into a chaos spawn at the first sign of warp exposure. So, about that, sunshine. The soul binding is a ritual performed by the Emperor himself, or rather by what's left of him. You and thousands of your fellow recruits are marched into a vast, dimly lit chamber deep within the Imperial Palace, where the air hums with psychic energy so intense that your bones feel like they're vibrating. Not in a fun, classy way. So you stand there before the Golden Throne, that colossal, decaying life support machine, and for the first time you feel his presence. And like a cheese wheel in your nether regions, it hurts. The moment the Emperor's mind touches yours, reality shatters. His sheer psychic force burns through your soul, branding his will onto your essence, forging you into a conduit for the Imperium. This is not a gentle process. There is no mental loop here. And you know what? It's not even remotely survivable for a lot of people. And it's all happening inside your head. You feel your entire being unravel, your mind is flooded with his power, with his memories, with his pain. You get the briefest, most soul-crushing glimpse of 10,000 years of suffering, a fraction of what he endures every second of every day to keep the Imperium alive. And then, you know, your eyeballs explode. Almost every astropath goes blind from the soul binding. The sheer intensity of the ritual burns out your optic nerves like a candle dropped into a furnace. The Imperium considers this a success, which really kind of tells you everything you need to know about Imperial job benefits. And some just don't survive. Their souls get obliterated on the spot, leaving behind empty, glassy-eyed husks that smell like warp exposure and a bad decision. The Imperium calls this a success rate. You call this unbelievable levels of pain and suffering, and oh my god, my eyeballs exploded. Oh, and then just to rub salt onto the wound, you are immediately put to work. No recovery time, no adjustment period, no, hey man, that was incredibly traumatic, maybe take a breather. Nope. You're blind, you're psychically scarred, you're mentally shredded, and your psychic butthole hurts, and now you're hearing voices that weren't even meant for human ears. And what's your first task? Start transmitting messages across the warp while trying not to accidentally let a daemon hitch a ride. Your entire existence from this point forward is a daily fight for survival. There's no rest, no relief, no sense of accomplishment. Some super masochistic people might love their job, but how could you? Because you're not just relaying messages. You're not mentally texting across the galaxy. You're throwing your mind into the warp, into a realm where sanity has no meaning, where every single transmission is like lighting a massive psychic beacon that screams, "Free meal here, boys!" And the only ones that can hear it? Literally everything that wants to kill you. Every daemon, every eldritch horror, every nightmare given form that drifts through the Imperium feels you reaching out, and every time you send a message, you pray that the wrong thing doesn't pick up on the other side. If your willpower slips for even a second, if you falter, if your focus wavers, you don't just die, you let the warp in, and you become the message. A cautionary tale, a warning to others just like you. Your body is twisted beyond recognition, reshaped into something unnatural. Your soul shredded, your consciousness erased as something else moves in and takes your place. Now, if that happens, you can only be sure of one thing, really. Your fellow astropaths will set you on fire immediately. Not out of malice, not even out of fear. They'll burn you alive because they have no choice. Because, if they don't, whatever thing is taken over your body will tear through the ship, possess the crew, open a warp rift, and turn the vessel into a floating mausoleum of screaming flesh. And let's just say you avoid daemon possession. Let's say you manage to fight off the things crawling and clawing at the edge of your mind every single day. Congratulations! Now you just have to deal with the slow, inevitable decay of your mind, because every astropath burns out eventually. The Imperium doesn't have retired astropaths. They don't grow old. They don't get pensions. There are only 3 ways your life ends. You die from overexposure to the warp. You suffer a complete psychic breakdown and get executed before you cause a problem. Or you start mumbling in a tongue nobody understands, Mugu Gaipan, and a commissar puts a bolt round through your skull just to be safe. And if you're really lucky, you'll end up in an astropathic choir. Sounds important, right? A grand, noble purpose. Hundreds of astropaths working together, linking their minds to send messages across the stars, keeping the Imperium's war machine running. Well, here's the problem. If one of you breaks mid-transmission, if one of you fails to keep control, if one of you lets something in, the entire choir explodes. Yes, explodes. Not metaphorically, not in some weird abstract sense, oh, that's kind of bad sort of way. We're talking about psychic overload, brain matter liquefying, warp energy cascading through the link, dozens, sometimes hundreds of astropaths bursting like overripe fruit at a Gallagher show. And the Imperium still calls this a privilege. You ever hear someone complain about their job, about how miserable they're working overtime, dealing with rude customers, or sifting through pointless meetings? Imagine explaining your workday to them. Oh, you're tired from your shift, Deborah? That's rough. Oh, me? Well, I just spent 12 hours screaming messages into the warp while fending off interdimensional horrors that want to use my skull as a drinking goblet. Also, I lost my vision in a ritual that may or may not have permanently damaged my very soul. But yeah, go ahead and tell me more about how your boss forgot your birthday. He's such a D-bag. Because being an astropath in Warhammer 40K isn't just a bad job, it is the worst job. No glory, no reward, no way out. Just endless screaming into the void, hoping that the void doesn't scream back. And if it does, well, let's hope somebody remembers to incinerate your body before you start speaking in tongues. You're not a hero, not in their eyes, just another mind burned out for the Imperium's endless machine, another piece of kindling to keep the corpse god's fire lit. The world might be cruel to you, but in the short amount of time that you've had, you've left a mark, whether they admit it or not. You've kept countless lives from vanishing into the void. Your voice has echoed across battlefields, stirring fleets and guiding armies. Not in any grand way, of course, but still, it mattered. As you can see, working for the Imperium's kind of a drag. Wait till you find out how bad it could be when you're on Chaos's side as a sorcerer of Tzeentch.